Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to this A2I talk, where the theme of today's talk is African soils and how soil conditions affect agriculture development. This is an exciting but also rather technical topic, so therefore we are lucky to be in the company of two experienced people, namely Mikkel Dalsgaard from the company Rootzone and Jørgen Løgstrup, who's been working with African soils for more than 30 years. So we will start off by Mikkel explaining the work of Rootzone Africa, followed by Jørgen, who will share his experience on African soils. The format of today is the same as usual, so we will start with a 20 to 25-minute presentation from Mikkel and Jørgen, and followed by 10 to 15 minutes where you can ask questions. For your questions, you can either raise your digital hand, or you can ask your questions in the chat, or simply just interrupt. I should also say we are recording this session, and it will be available on our homepage at a later stage. I think that is it from my side, so I will hand over the screen to you, Mikkel. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Thomas. I hope you can hear me clearly.
We can.
Very good. Yeah, my name is Mikkel Dalsgaard. I'm the managing director, and with me today I have Jørgen Løgstrup, founder and owner, and as Thomas said, more than 30 to 40 years of experience working with the African soil. So just let me share my screen.
Yes, that looks good.
Very good. So let me just start introducing our companies. We have in Denmark, we have Basis and Transform, and in Africa, we have Biofertilizer Africa and Rootzone Africa. What we have is EU verified biotechnologies. We work solely with biotechnologies in terms of nature-based solution, and we have two EU verification. One is for heat sanitation of biomass to have a safe recirculation of the valuable nutrients and carbon, and the other EU verification is in terms of our active biological filter system for water treatment and processed water recycling and so on. So let me go into the context of the soil in Africa. What we are doing is we have the possibility to do soil testing. It's a soil scan, which is a digital equipment where we go on site, do a soil scan. And then we can have the result within 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes. And there we got a report, which is here, where we get the soil status. And when we have the soil status, we are able to come up with our recommendation in terms of what we are doing in Uganda at the moment is we are producing sanitized organic NPK fertilizer for the agriculture purposes. So when we have this soil scan, we can come with our recommendation. What we see very often or always is a lack of organic matter in the African soil. We also use this in terms of our water purification, where we need to have the soil status to be able to design our Rootzone biological filter system. So what we see here is that in Africa we can use this online or on-site technology to do the soil status. In Denmark, it is not recognized by the authorities or the agriculture business. So let me leave the floor to Jørgen to go into a more scientific explanation in terms of the African soil and how to improve and how it affects the agriculture productivity.
Mikkel, can you take? Yes. Okay, thank you. Just to give you an orientation about what we are doing is what I show you here is developed together with Professor Sake, who is a scientist and professor in soil and plant development at Makerere, or former at Makerere University. We are working very close together because you can say I'm agronomist from Denmark, but we are looking different of what to do. It's different things you have to look at in Africa combined to Denmark. First of all, the Danish soil is a mixture not developed at the site where we have it. It is transported to Denmark by the ice tide. African soil, most of the African soils are developed locally at the space. That means it's developed locally, and it is, you can say, it's formed from rocks to minerals to soil to young soil and to older soil at the same space. That is, you can say, the most of the soil in the Central Africa. The sandy soil is transported, if we take in the north and in the southern part of Africa, Sahara and Kalahari, then they are developed or transported as minerals, as sandy. And that is a wind transport. But the traditional, you can say, planted soil, where we have the rainforest and we have the plants, that is developed locally. And the important situation is to look at what is needed to get a good vegetation. You need to have the solids background, and you have the macropores, which is where we have the air, and you have the micropores, where you have the water. The micropores, the definition is if you have how do you have water hanging on your soil is where you have the micropores. As soon as the pores are bigger than water can fill out, then we have the macropores, and that's where we have the air. And it is very important to have a mixture of macro and micropores, where we can have, so that we can have water and we can have air in the soil. That is, we define it especially in reed beds, because reeds have the specification that they transport air down. But for agriculture, we have to deliver a soil which can have both. And here comes then the next step. If we don't have enough macropores for air, then we can inject or mix more organic material in. That is what farmers are doing in Africa. They are mixing organic in to get a more porous soil so that they can get air into the soil. A lot of soils in Africa, and here I'm talking from Central Africa, that is clay. We have 30% clay. That means it's very difficult to get macropores, and there the organic material can by mixing that in, you can get the macropores, and that is done traditional in agriculture in Africa. So that is a condition to get a good soil. The problem mainly is, if you think about Africa soil, then the high heat decompose the organic material very fast. That means the soil will close faster than we have in Denmark. That means the soil, if you don't do anything and you have the heat, then the organic material will be decomposed in about 1.5 years. So you will transfer the soil to less macropores if you don't do anything. If you have plants on the soil, then you have the open situation, because the reeds are developed pores in the soil. But as soon as and most of the agriculture in Africa, in Central Africa, is based on a soil which former had been rainforest. And that means as soon as we take the forest away, then we have a higher temperature on the soil. The temperature in a rainforest is never more than 29 degrees. It's always between 25 and 29 degrees. That is the rainforest specification, that if the temperature is higher, we have a higher solar influence, then the rainforest will evaporate, and by evaporated water, we will use energy, and that means it will cool down the soil. So that is a function which is in the rainforest. But when we transfer to agriculture production, the rainforest to agriculture production, we will reduce this effect, because we don't have the same, you can say, the same potential for evaporation. And that is one of the big problems, which is, you can say, just partly known, but not known very much from our side, who are coming from Europe or US, which that this is a bigger problem than we thought. And it is also the influences also, you can say, we are looking more and more to try to transfer agriculture to a mix of trees and production of coffee or whatever you want to have, banana. So this situation is, you can say, it's coming more and more up, but it is not very well known in the European and the US agronomist. Okay, can we take the next picture? Yeah. And to give you here, this is shown as a coffee bush. When you look at the coffee or the plant production, then what is required? If you look at the bottom, under in the soil, then it is important to have a porous soil where oxygen is coming in, because we need oxygen for development of roots, and that is also where we have a big influence of phosphate. The phosphate is, you can say, is stimulating the growth. So phosphate is a basic mineral for plants to grow. The next step is that you can say what is needed to get the green part, to get the green part of a plant is that is nitrogen mainly. And you have to imagine here, that is something also what we don't work so much with in Europe. The plant area, the green area has to be 6 times higher than the soil area. That means 6 times square meter you have plants. So you need 6 times more space for green plants. That means the green part is making shadow to the soil underneath, and therefore in practice we are talking much more about how much green area do we have in the vegetation, and then the next is, if you want to fruit, here it is shown as coffee, that the fruit development is based on potassium. So you can say that it is not at the same time that plants need NPK. They need it when they have to. They need something for basic growing. They need they need phosphate for green growing. They need nitrogen, and for fruit developing they need potassium. So that is also a thing which we mix all together and say, okay, we need NPK so and so much for this yield. But in Africa you need, and that is when you have, you can say, like coffee, which is 8-10 years plant, or even more, up to 30-40 years we have plants. There you need to know when do you give this nutrients, where do they need it. And we produce ourselves, we produce 3 different mixture after at what development stage we have the plants. Okay, yes, go to the next picture. Then let me just give you here, that is what plant nutrients requirement, just that you have, that's the same in Denmark, but the primary nutrients is NPK, nitrogen for phosphorus and potassium. The secondary nutrients, which is, you can say, the primary is in the level 100 kilo per hectare. The secondary nutrients are 10 kilo area per hectare. That's calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. And then we have the micronutrients: boron, copper, molybdenum, and manganese, zinc, chlorine, sodium. Many soil in Africa has not all the micronutrients. Boron is in Uganda, where we are working a lot. There is no boron in the soil. So it's needed to look at the micronutrients. So your yield can depend on are there boron or not. And then we have the other nutrients, which you can say is carbon, oxygen, and also hydrogen. So that is how it looks from our side. Let me then also give you a view of how do we work with the farmers. We do this, that we are working together with the university and the people, and then we, as Mikkel showed you, then we take soil tests, take them in, analyze them. They deliver the soil to us, and then they get the analysis immediately, and then we can say that is what is needed for this. And it is very important to say it is a mixture of texture. That means how much volume do we of air and water do we have in the soil, and it is a question about do we have all the nutrients which is needed to the growth. So it is a mixture of knowledge about soil conditions in physical and chemical. And you need to, let us say, to know something about that. In practice, people know something, but they feel, what we have seen is that in practice they don't know very much about micronutrients. They know about primary nutrients, but not micronutrients, and that means we can leave. We are in the situation that the agriculture production in Central Africa has decreased, mainly in Uganda and in the neighbor country, and it has decreased in the situation. If I take coffee, then coffee production in Uganda is in the level of something between 500 and 900 gram per bush. It should be in the level 4 kilo. Even it can come up to 7 kilo. So that means what has happened is that the farmer or the production has gone in the direction that they have produced the coffee and also other yields, and they have produced that with the background that the soil is good enough to produce these things. But by the high temperature you have there, then the nutrients are used, and the physical condition for the soil has changed so that it is getting more and more closed. You can see, and that is partly also a problem because the temperature influence has also a big influence. Please take the next picture, Mikkel. If we look at oxygen in water, which is important because the plants are getting part of the oxygen by the water. If the temperature, which you can say average in Denmark, is 10 degrees, then we have 10-11 microgram oxygen per liter water. If the temperature is 20, then we have less than 9 milligram, and if it is 30 degrees, which is normal or can be normal in Africa, then we have 30% less oxygen in the water we use for irrigation. That means the water is not so healthy, you can say, as we have as the water we have in Denmark. And that is also a problem because higher temperature reduce the potential of oxygen coming with water. So there is a difference which we have to imagine when we are looking for agriculture in Africa. That condition is higher temperature reduce the you can say the effect of water, and on the other hand, the physical conditions are getting changed very fast in a high temperature soil than we have in a lower temperature soil. So I think that is just what we would open up and for discussion, and you are very welcome. I'll just say, you said 30 years. I went to Africa in practice 1959. So it's some years ago, and I started my agriculture activity in Namibia and know very well about Namibia. We have experience from Namibia, East Africa, mainly Uganda, and we have some from Algeria. And now we are also looking a little in the North Africa. But our practice is mainly based on Namibia and Uganda. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jørgen and Mikkel, for sharing these insights. Please, if you have questions, just raise your hand while you think about them. I have one question to begin with. So when you talk about when you map nutrients, is it possible to link those mapping to certain plants for whom or for which that those nutrient conditions are optimal? Can you look at plants? So do different plants need different compositions of nutrients?
Yeah, it's partly done by because we are working with what is now the international fertilizer, FCD, now fertilizer development, which do that partly. You can get there is a mapping in the whole Africa from what is now FIDZ, or what is now the name, I forgot it. But you can find very good analysis from what is now the name? I forgot it in the past, but it is the International Fertilizer Organization.
Yeah. You can also say that when we are using the soil scanner, the test of the soil to get the soil status, then we are able to design our sanitized organic NPK fertilizer according to the soil and the crop needs, because we can then do our recommendation according to soil status and crop growth. So in that way, you can say that we can make a designed NPK fertilizer.
Okay.
Organic. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there's a question from Sebastian. Please just present yourself, where you're from, and the question then.
Hi, hello. I'm Sebastian from Care Denmark. Thanks so much. This was really interesting. I actually know very little about soils, although I understand it's the basis of everything. I have two quick questions. One is, it sounds like, and what I sort of have heard anecdotally, is that the soils are sort of uniformly lacking the same thing across really large areas. And in that context, what is the value add of the soil testing, like at that very kind of small level of the farmer? And my second question is, we have a project in Uganda in Changwali refugee settlements on biogas digesters, which produce biogas, I guess, first and foremost, but as a byproduct produces bioslurry, which we're looking to sort of create green income generating activities amongst women through the sale of that bioslurry. And I wonder if you have any experience on how, I mean, we haven't looked at it at that level. We've just said, okay, but what we understand is that this is good for soils. So there's a sale, there's a market for that. But if you have any sort of insights or experiences with bioslurry from biogas digesters as an organic source of compost. Thanks very much.
Just to give say it is not correct. Let me say that the soil in Africa are uniform. They look uniform, but there might be the situation in some that there are differences which you don't see, but you can analyze it. And then there is, I would say, also as farmer, we know there is variation. As farmer, we know even if on our own soil, we always know there is a big variation. And that is the same with farmers in Uganda. They also know the variation in their soil because they have gone there, maybe not only them, but their parents and so on. And they can tell you. So that this area is better for banana and this area is better for coffee or whatever. They know how to, when you talk with them, then they know their tradition. That it might be sometimes tradition, because sometimes they say, why don't I have the same yield as I had last year? And then we can say, okay, it's because there is a lack of this and this. And that is what we analyze. Then let me say, we started with our biofertilizer in Africa, not because of fertilizer, but because of the plant diseases. We started in I think it was 96, 97. There came a coffee dealer to me and he said, I have the problem that the farmers are coming with the coffee and then they want to have the husk back because they mulch up the soil so that you get a porous soil, and they're mulching up with the husk that they get back. But they don't get the husk back that they have come with. They get something which is stored in from the dealer's side, and in this way they get a mixed husk back, and in this way the coffee wild diseases is spread in the whole Uganda. There's nearly none production of coffee in Uganda which is not influence of coffee wild diseases. The diseases is partly also a bigger, I didn't take that before, but the diseases, the plant diseases is a bigger problem in Africa than it is in Denmark, because the high temperature developed diseases, and when you have weak plants, then it is growing, then the diseases are more riskful. So that is one part which you have to take care of. The biogas, bioslurry, is very well for, we can easily transfer that to biofertilizer. And we have tested it in Denmark. It's a very good raw material for our production. The problem is that you can't guarantee the slurry don't spread diseases if you don't heat it up to 70 degrees. That is one of the problems, and that is something which is not so well known in Africa, that they have all these diseases. The farmers don't, they can see it, but they don't know how to manage it, let me say it. And that is where, therefore, you get the chemical industry coming in very fast, and that's where you can say that's where it's opened up for the chemical industries. If you look at it in Uganda, then they are selling a standard product for fertilizer, and they are also selling chemicals as fertilizer. They say to the farmers it helps, but it don't help very much. And you get more, and the risk for the moment, in not only in Uganda but in several, is that we are transferring the production to chemical agriculture more like we do in Denmark, and not the organic production, which is the basic in Uganda and in the neighbor countries. So the situation of decreasing production is open up for the chemical industries.
Okay, yeah. I'll be reaching out. Thanks so much.
Yeah, just a short follow-up, Sebastian, in terms of the contribution to the small-scale farmer in terms of soil scan, soil test. It's of course, as Jürgen says, needed to know what is the soil needs. So what we are offering is combined with our organic fertilizer, that we can provide this soil scan, and then of course offer them a domestic produced high quality sanitized organic NPK fertilizer. We boost with natural NPK ingredients, and in that way you can say we offer the soil scan in combination with our fertilizer. So it's a part of our concept, you could say.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much. We also have a question from John. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Called John Mark Mwangala. I'm a co-founder and managing director at BioBloom Uganda. We manufacture organic fertilizers from black soldier flies. I'm very happy to hear that we have more people trying to introduce organic fertilizers. My first question is the fertilizer blended? So is it a blend, both organic and inorganic?
No, 100% organic.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. My second question is about when we talk about customizing fertilizers, one of the challenges we've had is that, do you do it according to the agroecological zone? Do you do it according to the soil? Because if you say soil sampling at farmer level, how do you then generalize it according to the region in order to ensure that there is no pushback on the uptake? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so what was the first question?
Oh, the first question was already answered. The second question is the one that is open. Thank you. About that, how do you, maybe let me just repeat, how do you ensure that once you make the fertilizer, it can be used in more than 2 or 3 sub-counties that are falling within the same agroecological zone? Because that's the challenge we have. We make the fertilizer in Kampala, you take it to Southwest Uganda, and they're saying, can it work here also? Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, Jørgen, you take that.
You can say that, first of all, when you produce biofertilizer, then you have to produce it as nearby the users. We have to minimize all transport. We have no interest in let us say, in having and in only produce in Kampala. We produce for the moment for the eastern part of Uganda, we produce in Iganga. And we are setting up production where we can minimize in transport combined with out transport. It's the transport, in my opinion, the transport is the most costly part you have in Uganda, and especially in Kampala, because you use all your time on your roads. It doesn't make sense to, let us say, accelerate the transport, because that's not how it works. You have, and we have done that. I have been manager in the Danish pig production. The main thing we always do is in Denmark is to try to minimize transport, because that is the heaviest load you have in agriculture on climate situation. You use and in Kampala you use time, and you make not only climate disruption, you use just too much. You have to produce your. I know that you produce this fertilizer in the central of Kampala, and that's okay, but it's very little volume combined to what is needed. So I would say produce your fertilizer nearby your users.
Yeah,
and that is what we try.
Right. Yeah, I'll just add because you talked about black soldier fly and yes, the residue you name it fertilizer. For us, we have to make a difference between compost and fertilizer because the compost needs to be NPK boosted to have the huge impact on yield. Not saying that we don't. We do really think compost is a good product. Black soldier fly residue, according to the European international standard, needs to be sanitized to have a safe recirculation, because you can have disease spread from the residue from the black soldier fly. So there might be a possibility for a cooperation if you want to have your residue from the black soldier fly sanitized to have a safe recirculation.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one final question, and that is maybe just stepping back a little bit. So when we talk about soil quality in general, how much of the soil quality can be attributed to how you physically handle the soil, for example, plowing or other handling of the soil, and how much can be attributed to what you actually add to the soil?
Yeah, but you have to look a little different. In Denmark, we are plowing our soil, or have done it, I would say. In Africa, as soon as you are starting plowing your soil, then, and that is coming up because European has too big influence in Africa, because you want to produce maize or wheat, because we have a standard price for that. But that doesn't make sense in the African soil or in Uganda soil to produce maize. It is in the African soil you should have not monoculture, but you should have mixture culture. You should have mixed with trees. You don't try to. It is easy. You can say it's easy to set up and to invest in maize production, but maize production is excluding a lot of other plants because you use chemicals which not accept other plants to grow. And that is maize is from it's a good product, but it is produced in a way where I would say it shouldn't be accepted, because I have produced it myself. So I know we use a lot of chemicals in maize production, and that doesn't help the African soil in the long run. The big import or the big influence of Uganda economy is coffee and other, you can say, other plants which produce over several years. Banana is another product which is very important. So in my opinion, Uganda shall look for what can we produce as with high income, and high income possibility is in coffee. It could also be fruit, and it can be other. You are exporting fruit to Denmark even. So there are potential, but that is not monoculture so much, and it is not yearly culture. It is tree production, or let us say several years growth, and that is more that hold the physical condition in the African soil is only to be held by plants who grows many years. As soon as you change your soil every year, then the physical structure will not function, and it is more difficult in a high temperature. because the soil will collapse very fast if they don't have the organic material inside. And that is not by the way we are doing in Denmark. We have also reduced our carbon in our soil with about 30-40% over the last decades. So, and that is the same which happened in Uganda. And that's why I'm saying we have to look for a better growth of trees and plants which can give a good income. And coffee is a product where Uganda for the moment is going down, and who is coming in? Brazil, Vietnam, and other countries, because they produce cheaper. But why do they produce cheaper? That is because they invest in another way. They do what we could say chemical agriculture, chemical coffee production. Uganda is one of the few countries which can still produce coffee traditional. And the question is to help, and you have low, and there's a low, you have workers enough to do this. You don't need all the machines which we use here in Denmark or in Vietnam and in Brazil. So it's a question to get it growing up from what the traditional small farmers and try to help them to maybe make bigger organization. We have cooperatives which can do work together and get the machines they need together. So it's a question about how to also a society question, which is a little difficult.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jørgen and Mikkel, for sharing your insights. It has been technical. I think I got most of it. At least I am wiser than when I came to this meeting. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. For the next